So we have today the lovely Beth Sears, who's going to give us a presentation on yoga for menopause, which is her final project for her teacher training program that she started with me last year and is completing. So this is her independent study, and the independent study in the teacher training program is a bit more elaborate than it is in this course. So Beth is doing this not only for personal interest, but also with the intention of perhaps teaching a workshop or leading other people through a course series on this specific topic. So it's a bit more of an in-depth presentation. So without further ado, I will pass it over to her.
Good morning. It's still morning for us. Hi. So this practice or this topic is very relevant to myself, having gone through the transition to menopause. Ayurveda looks at the transition to menopause as a bridge between perimenopause and the beautiful, wonderful life after menopause. And one of the reasons it's so very deeply personal and intriguing to me is that we have not embraced this time, that we have allowed society to really close us in. We don't have the information that we used to have because of generational separation and not gathering together as women. So we're not honoring this time. And a lot of us, in my own experience and in the travels I do and the people I talk to, the women feel very hopeless a lot of times. So in a lot of the research I've done that is regarding Ayurveda and yoga, the theme has always been that this is such a great, juicy, wonderful time. Juicy, which is contradicts the latter years where it's also been dried up and old hag and crone. Those are images that I'm going to urge you to reject and form a new reality about moving from the perimenopausal years and even before that into the after menopause years. After all, men have been celebrated for years for their gray hair and their sexy knowledge of maturity. And women have not been portrayed the same way. These after years are really the best part of life, and we can reclaim them. It is the time when we fully become the expression of the divine feminine. We hopefully stop leaking our energy, and we celebrate truly embodying the transition into womanhood. We celebrate the younger years, the first menses, the becoming a woman. And in the middle life, when we are in our childbearing years, and bearing our children, if that is what we choose to do, and then we kind of close in. So this is a beautiful creative time. So I have something like close to 60 slides on this, and it's very difficult to condense it all into a quick 20-minute overview. So this is just a teaser. Life is viewed as Kapha, Pitta, and then Vata. So these are the periods of our life. For this presentation, you all have experience with those doshas, so I'm not going to go into that right now. Let me see, I have to go to my next one. Ta-da! So my own experience. At the age of about 39, I thought I was going crazy, and I had no knowledge in this kind of practice, Ayurveda, or even though I was doing yoga, I didn't really understand what I was doing. I hadn't had a teacher training. I'd never done anything other than my own private practice. I was feeling lost. My mother was not in my life. I didn't have friends, relatives to discuss this with me. And when the subject comes up, it's kind of let's not talk about it. So around that time, of course, your fertility is declining. I personally thought I was pregnant when I was about 45, and then when I realized I wasn't, it sent me into quite a tailspin. the dryness that's associated with this period is just kind of shocking. That impacts, of course, your not just your skin and your mucus and all the other tissues of your body, but it even can become something that you a persona. Um, Estrogen levels, of course, are declining, and if we don't support the healthy, natural rejuvenation of the estrogen levels, things like heart rhythm problems can happen because estrogen is responsible for the heart rate, and for high cholesterol can be a problem. I myself went to the doctor, and the doctor's like, "Oh, your cholesterol's high." I'm like, "What? There's no way. Just hormones, just menopause." But so doing things like Ayurvedic practices, yoga that is appropriate, will help with the exercise component of that, which from a physiological standpoint, absent Ayurveda and yoga, is going to support your health. But then when you get into the ideas of the essence of life, the things that we do to support ourselves, to nurture ourselves, to nurture others, because that is, Yasmin and I were talking the other day, and she gave me this great book to read, and I have to admit that I started reading it immediately, and it was discussing how our expression or non-expression of our femininity is going to have an impact on our estrogen. And this is a scientific book. This is not Ayurveda. This is not yoga. So digging into the things that we can do to support this life essence, the ojas, the things that make us creative, and moving from this pitta stage of life, which is very outwards, to the vata stage of life, which is very inwards. Let's see. And then on this little slide, I have the idea that my own experience has also been, heart rhythms and heart problems. I ended up actually overnight in the hospital, chest pains. And as soon as I checked out that I was okay, it was interesting that I was able to start supporting myself in a different way. And through, that was, as I'm presenting this, we are in the middle of the pandemic. So there's all this added stress, and there's not my usual going to the yoga studio or going to do this, that, or the other practice that would support me with community connectedness, laughter, common goals. So the most beautiful thing, just to reiterate, is that this is an opportunity to step into a more fulfilling life. It comes naturally as your body and your mind are kind of forced to go naturally inward. In the midlife, we're often seeking some sort of approval from others. We are using our motivation and our discipline that goes along with that pitta time to excel at a career, to bring your family into a very raising successful children, happy children, hopefully, that will become happy adults. But we start letting go of resistance to this new way of being. And if we can do that between this perimenopausal period, which is between 45 and 55, the period before actual menopause. Menopause is only diagnosed really from the standpoint of having gone a year without a period, a menses. And then there's the postmenopausal period. So all through this time, you're going to be experiencing these massive shifts in your hormones. And so yoga and Ayurveda can support the shift, and shift the shift in your hormones, the changing hormones, but also the shift in your perspective and hopefully a way of seeing your life. So that can be yoga, Ayurveda, also additionally practices like writing and burning, journaling, keeping a gratitude journal. They're all powerful ways to let go of anything that is undigested in your emotions and your thoughts, anything that's holding you back. dissolving any ama, the toxins that you may have accumulated. And again, we're in a traumatic period right now. So these are practices that no matter where you are in this process, can support your healthy existence and your transition. So just some common issues during menopause. Most of these I've had. Brain fog, physical injuries like pain, the pitta period, the midlife, the perimenopausal period, when your pitta is really high. I don't know about you, but I'm kind of was push, let me be very competitive, even with my yoga. While I was beginning to study Ayurveda at this point, I wasn't really understanding that the more I did the things I liked that came naturally, the more I was probably not helping myself. So to do the things that were pacifying for that pitta is necessary. We talked about heart issues. Respiration is also an issue during the time of transition. When it's not normally, you wouldn't think the yogis would have all these respiration issues because we are so trained in breathing. But the surges in hormones and the dehydration that comes from the vata, the air, the ether element circulating, the motion can happen. So it's really important to support all your tissues by building your ojas, your heart-centered work like meditation, specifically heart-centered work, and grounding meditations as well, connecting the earth, connecting your heart, connecting your head, connecting the heavens. And the other thing that really drove me to pick this topic, even though I think Yasmin helped me pick it a lot, in hindsight, dealing with Alzheimer's and dementia in my family. And one of the big issues with transition between perimenopause to this beautiful afterlife of postmenopause is that sleep can become quite the issue. And sleep and digestion, which Ayurveda, as you know, is very focused on digestion. Our sisters, they play together a lot. And what my own reality became, nothing else mattered if I wasn't sleeping. And so one of the very biggest lessons, if anything you take from this, is as we move through the stages, even 35 to 45, which doesn't have a name, it's just the time before perimenopause, we can be building our ojas, building our life essences, our prana, doing the things very simply that support us and will continue to support us. When you enter perimenopause, if you're not doing that, the term I kept finding was resting on your estrogen or in your estrogen. And that was, as I understand it, it's kind of like you're just relying on it always being there, not necessarily doing the things to support yourself for the future. So 45 to 55, it's not the end of the world. If you're there, you haven't been doing it, but doing the things that will, again, I keep using the word nourish, support, pacify that pitta, bring you into a place where you know how to sleep. You know what to do when your brain starts doing its monkey mind thing and you're worried about whether the kids are getting home on time or whether you paid a bill or all these things that are just so practical and we do that aren't really the most important things. Yes, whether your children are safe is important, but and Alzheimer's dementia is very related to sleep and to clearing out, digesting, clearing the plaques out, amyloid plaques out of your brain, we think. Not going into that a great deal right now because it's a whole nother topic, but so to build that ojas, we do the things like eating a healthy, diet that we cook ourselves, not microwaving, finish eating early. This is one that's really been hard for me personally, but it makes a huge difference. Um, Not only do we not want to go to bed and have heartburn, we also want to be able to have digested for the most part so that the body can do its cleaning, which is like Alzheimer's dementia, so critical. And so that the body can start bringing the heart rate down, and so that you can have the recovery from your athletic pursuits, and that you will be ready for the next day. Um,
Sorry to interrupt you, Beth.
yeah,
Would you be able to talk a little bit about the asana practice and how the asana practice can support menopause?
sure. Hold on one second. Let me get myself sort of where we're going here. Um, da-da-da. Oh, you're missing all kinds of good stuff here. Okay, here's the yoga. Um,
If we miss anything, we'll read your report.
yes, it's gonna be interesting to get it all together. So yoga is one of those beautiful practices, of course, that try to figure out how to say this correctly without going too far into it. So perimenopause is characterized by being in the pitta stage. Of course, we're not just in one stage at a time, and that's not just one energy. It's that transition and the fluctuating hormones. So with yoga, we want both a appropriate pitta pacifying practice. That's a hard one to say. Um, and in that practice, we want to bring a lightness, a joy, a laughter, learning how to not be closed off. So we're doing a pitta pacifying practice, maybe at 75% effort, in a non-effortless, sort of in an effortless, non-goal oriented way. The cooling breaths, the sitali, or you're doing your tongue in and bringing the air in and feeling the coolness of the air, and the exhale, and then repeating that. Finding ways to bring your yoga practice also into your regular life. And then the vata elements, which we are, as we're changing, of course, the winds of vata need structure. Foundation, grounding. So those are the poses that are the downward facing dog, the child's pose, to improve digestion, twisting poses like a supine spinal twist, balancing poses like your tree pose, your eagle pose. Um, I it still needs challenging. It's not always simple, gentle, easy, because vata still needs to have the weight bearing is very important, and there is an element in unfortunately with menopause of weight gain, menopause belly. So we do want to still be addressing the athletic pursuits as well as the athletic benefits, the exercise benefits, as well as the more energetic needs. So let's see what else.
It sounds like that it's a lot about the approach to the practice as much as the actual poses like grounding and cooling poses, but also this sort of like letting go of that competition and being in that space of laughter and light, which I imagine is the same sort of thing that you need when you're during menopause.
Exactly, and that is one of the things I address many times in here, is that so much of this, I think, is cultivating a sense of humility, which, you're not making yourself too big or too small. You are approaching your practice as an experiment, and in each of these practices or each of these times of life. So really, I have three practices, and I didn't break it into the perimenopause, menopause after. It's more of a vata pacifying, pitta pacifying, and then both, because really and truly, there's both of these elements in here. And then I found another practice it hadn't registered. I may have heard it a million times. Agnisara, which is this, makes such sense to me. It's bringing the focus to your core. In Pitta, we're very outward. And then with Vata, the transition into later life, we are moving inward. And the practice also is cultivating a healthy Agni, a digestive fire for radiant health. But yes, I think I went on and on about the same thing that you just said. Letting go is the element that keeps coming to mind, and always being teachable. There was a really good guide I found on, I think it was actually on Banyan Botanicals. It's a PDF they have. There is a tips for Pitta in particular, and the thing I kept every time I would see that would be laughter, lightness, letting go of competition, which we're told every time we come to the mat, right? No competition.
Can you sum up with it in like 30 seconds if there's anything else you need to share? I'm sorry to cut you off.
It's a lot.
So much to do on our last day.
So lots of symptoms, but really they're not symptoms. So let's address the basic you. I think the whole thing is all about nourishing, supporting, knowing you're not alone, finding creative outlets. Let me go to my little wrapping up slide. Oh, celebrating. Bathe in the moonlight. Meditation, there's great meditations, but it's just like glory in being feminine and figuring out what that means. So yeah, I guess I have the last little line here and I have no idea why I wrote it. It just says, learn from the past, stay in the present, and dream for the future. And I think all of these practices let us see that path a little better.
Amazing. Thank you so much, Beth.
That was a lot.
No, it's okay. Thank you.
It's